Hello, my dear brothers and sisters. I am Suraj Bhan, your instructor. Today, we will discuss about the importance of a secondary domain controller, and we will also perform the installation of secondary domain controller in our DC02 server. Okay, now the question is, why do you need a secondary domain controller in your organization? Okay, think about this way. You have thousands of users and one domain controller in a company. Those thousands of users are frequently requesting Active Directory resources, DNS resources, and other services. If something happened to your one and only domain controller, or if your domain controller crashes at one point of time, then all your employees will have hard time to get server resources in server downtime, irrespective of size of your organization, right? On this scenario, if you would have put a secondary domain controller, the secondary domain controller would have took place the primary server roles and would have performed the user requests seamlessly until you have fixed the primary server. So, having two domain controller in an organization would help in a lot ways. First of all, the secondary domain controller would act as a failover load balancing, and secondly, accessibility of Active Directory resources, DNS resources would be faster. Now, we'll go ahead and install our secondary domain controller in our DC02 server, right? As you can see, we have a primary domain controller named ctc.com installed on our DC01 server. Now we'll install a secondary domain controller in our DC02 server, right? To install a secondary domain controller, first of all, you need to install Active Directory domain services and DNS services on your server. So from your server manager, you go to manage and using add and roles feature, you can add Active Directory domain services and DNS services, right? Here I have already added Active Directory domain services and DNS services herein. So now we'll go ahead with promote this server to a domain controller. So click here. Now this deployment configuration is initializes. Here you can see there are three options are there. Add a domain controller to an existing domain, add a new domain to an existing forest, add a new forest. Here we will go ahead with add a domain controller to an existing domain because we have already domain controller ctc.com. So we'll need a replica of this ctc.com. So we'll select this option. If you select add a new domain to an existing forest, our existing forest is ctc.com, right? So if you click this one, you have multiple choices herein. So here the first option, select a domain type. Here in this option you can see there is child domain and tree domain is there. If you select the child domain, in the parent domain name you have to put ctc.com, right? Because our root domain name is ctc.com. So the now new domain name. Here, what you will put here in a root domain? Let's consider this. If you want your IT department to use a fully qualified domain name and separately for security reasons, you want to separate this IT department. So you can create a new domain name for IT like it.ctc.com. Here it is not only about IT. You can assign it for your HR department, your development department, for specifically research department because the research department in an organization is very crucial and it should be placed in very secure environment, right? Because you don't want to go out any kind of research information outside the server, so you need to be separate the server as secure as possible. So you can assign it and assign this as a research dot ctc dot com. Okay, now here supply the credential to perform this operation. Here you need to give your root server credential to perform this action. So here you need to click on this change. Now you will put the username and password of your root server, right? Okay, why? Okay, sorry, I have to, right? Now click OK. Now the credential is accepted. Now you can go ahead and click next, and you can install this child domain. So what about the tree domain? If you select the tree domain, the things are changed, right? So here in forest name box, you need to put the ctc.com forest, the new domain name. What should you assign this new domain name? Okay, let's assume that your ctc.com organization, they're developing a new application like Paperfly application, right? So you want this Paperfly to be a separate domain, so you can create a separate domain for it under the ctc.com. As per root server, it will this your new domain will get the same schema configuration, same active directory configuration as the ctc.com has, right? We have already discussed about it in our previous chapters. You can visit those chapters again and you can get it. So here you can put it like paperfly.com, right? Now, supply the credential to perform this operation. The same thing as I have already told, that you need to give the credential for the root server, right? To perform this operation. After giving the credential, you can click next and you can perform the secondary domain controller with a new domain name. Okay, so now we'll just forget about all those things. We'll go ahead with our first option. Click the first option, domain name ctc.com, right? The credentials are already there, so you go ahead, click next. Here you can see this option is showing up to me because I have already installed a secondary domain controller previously on this DC02, and few days back I demoted this server, so that's why it is showing me this allow domain controller to reinstall. On your window, this option not will not be showing. Okay, so don't freaking out or don't panic. So you can just I'll just select it here. Okay, so here you can select domain name system, yes, DNS server, global catalog server, yes, and here read only domain controller. Read only domain controller. What is a read only domain controller? I'll discuss about it in my next video. So we'll skip for this now. So site name would be like yes, New Delhi, right? So password is you can put your login password here, no issue, right? Then click next. Then click next and specify additional replication option. Replicate from this server. This is our root server, right? ctc.com. This name and ctc.com. And then click next. Then it will show the database folder, log file folder, sysbol folder. Okay, so here no need to change anything here. Click next and review option. If you want to know what are those things, you can go ahead and check all those things. Then click next. Now this pre-request check is also finished. So now we can go ahead and install our secondary domain controller, right? And click install. So this installation of secondary domain controller is really easy, but you need to think about so many factors before you install the secondary domain controller. And it is really indeed a very much requirement in your organization to install a secondary domain controller. In case of something would happen, so you must be prepared for that critical time or critical response. Okay, so now uh, once after you finish the installation of secondary domain controller, so be cautious about one thing. After installation of your secondary domain controller, you must need to configure sites and subnets in your root server for this secondary domain controller. Okay, and you need to configure properly. You need to configure the IP address properly. I need to give the name properly, right? Now you must be thinking that what is sites and subnet? I am not talking about those things yet. Okay, wait. Be patient. I will discuss about sites and subnet in my next chapter. So keep up with me and practice hard on your home lab so you can get used to it. So here we are done with the installation of secondary domain controller. I'll see you in my next video. Up to then, goodbye. Thank you.